In this session, we explore Section 11, Statutory and Other Disclosures, including lead-based paint disclosures and the buyer's cancellation rights. Section 11 is one of the most legally important parts of the contract. It outlines exactly what disclosures the seller must provide, when they must be delivered, and what rights the buyer has if disclosures are late or incomplete. We'll walk through 1. The full list of state-required disclosures, including TDS, NHD, SBQ/ESD, Mello-Roos, industrial use, fire hazard zones, and more too. When lead-based paint disclosures are required 3. Home fire hardening, defensible space, and natural hazard requirements 4. HOA, solar, balcony/stairway, and known material facts disclosures 5. And most importantly, the buyer's right to cancel if disclosures are not delivered within the required legal timeframes. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what must be disclosed, how to stay compliant with the Civil Code and CR rules, and how to protect both your buyer and seller from disclosure-related disputes. So let's get started with Section 11, Statutory and Other Disclosures and Cancellation Rights, and make your transactions safer, cleaner, and legally bulletproof. Section 11A, TDS, NHD, and Other Statutory and Supplemental Disclosures. 1. What seller must deliver. By the time in Section 3N1, the seller must deliver to the buyer, unless exempt, TDS package, typically TDS, NHD, notice of a legal controlled substance release, if any, Mello-Roos/1915 bond notice, industrial use/military ordinance, car form SBQ or ESD, and if in high/very high fire hazard severity area, the info/forms required by law, FHDS contents referenced. Statutory disclosures means the full state-mandated set of disclosures for 1 to 4 units. Section 11A2, when is TDS fully completed? TDS is considered complete when seller checks the coordination box, Section 1, completes and signs seller's sections, and seller's agent completes and signs agent's section or delivers an avid. Buyer signs Section 5 acknowledging receipt. It is important to note, nothing here removes the buyer's agent duty to conduct a reasonably competent visual inspection, avid, and disclose material facts. Section 11A3, Supplemental Disclosures, due per Section 3N1. If seller is not exempt from TDS, car form SBQ fully answered and delivered. If seller is exempt from TDS, car form ESD fully answered and delivered. Section 11A4, Subsequent or Amended Disclosures. If seller or listing agent learns of new adverse facts or inaccuracies before close of escrow, they must promptly amend TDS, SBQ, or other documents in writing. But no amended disclosure is required for conditions already known to buyer or revealed in buyer-ordered reports. Section 11B, Lead Disclosures, pre-1978. Seller shall, within the time specified in Section 3N1, provide car form LPD plus EPA pamphlet, unless exempt. Buyer shall, within the time specified in Section 3L3, has the right to risk assessment/inspection for lead hazards within that time frame. Section 11C, Home Fire Hardening Disclosure and Advisory. If a TDS is required and property is in a high/very high severity zone and built before January 1st, 2010, seller within the time specified in Section 3N, 1. Deliver to the buyer, 1. The required home hardening disclosure, 2. A statement of vulnerable features seller knows, 3. Low-cost retrofits list and which have been completed, 4. Final inspection report if one was prepared per Governor Code Section 51182. See CAR FHDS. Section 11D, Defensible Space Disclosure and Addendum. If TDS is required and property is in high/very high FHSC, seller delivers to the buyer, within the time specified in Section 3N, one disclosure of whether property complies with defensible space laws, and addendum allocating who will complete any needed compliance, CAR FHDS. Section 11E, Waiver Prohibited. Waivers of statutory, lead, and other disclosures in Section 11A1, 11B, 11C, and 11D are prohibited by law. These are mandated by law and cannot be waived by the parties. Section 11F, Return of signed copies. Buyer must return signed copies of the 11A, 11B, 11C, 11D disclosures and defensible space addendum, if applicable, within the time specified in Section 3L 5 or 5 days after delivery, whichever is later. Section 11G, Termination rights, the cancellation triggers. 1. Statutory and other disclosures. If a disclosure in 11A, B, C, or D, or a later amendment, is delivered after offer is signed, buyer may cancel within 3 days after personal delivery, or 5 days after mail or electronic delivery, by written notice of rescission to seller or authorized agent. If buyer doesn't rescind within that window, buyer is deemed to have approved the disclosure. 2. Defensible space compliance terms from FHDS if by the deadline specified in Section 11F buyer doesn't agree to the terms regarding defensible space compliance delivered by seller as shown by mutual signatures on FHDS. Then after first delivering a notice to buyer to perform, seller may cancel. Section 11H, Withholding taxes, FIRPTA and CA law. 1. Buyer and seller instruct escrow to withhold taxes as required by federal, FIRPTA, and CA law. 2. No federal withholding if, before close of escrow, one of the following is delivered. A. Car Form AS, seller's affidavit, showing exemption, or B. A qualified substitute's affidavit, Car QS, stating no withholding required, or C. Other acceptable documentation proving no withholding. 3. No CA withholding if, before close of escrow, escrow receives sufficient documentation that no state withholding is required. 4. Buyer must be informed by escrow when received. Section 11I, Megan's Law Database Disclosure. It advises the buyer that offender info is on meganslaw.ca.gov. Agents are not experts and recommend buyer check during investigations. Neither seller nor agent are required to check this website. Section 11J, Notice regarding gas and hazardous liquid transmission pipelines. Notice that pipeline location data is public at npms.phmsa.dot.gov. Buyer may contact local utilities/pipeline operators. Neither seller nor agent are required to check this website. Buyer should verify during contingency period. Section 11K, Natural and environmental hazards. If required by law and within the time specified in Section 3N, 1. Seller delivers. 1. Earthquake Guide and Environmental Hazards Booklet. 2. For 1 to 4 units or pre-1960 manufactured/mobile homes. The Residential Earthquake Risk Disclosure Statement, RERDS. 3. Even if exempt from NHD, seller discloses if the property is in special flood hazard, potential flooding, very high FHSC, state responsibility area, fault zone, seismic hazard zone, and any other required zones. Section 11L, Condos/Plan Development Disclosures. If the seller, within the time frame in paragraph 3N, 1, discloses whether the property is located in a CID/HOA and provides the required common interest disclosures via SBQ or ESD, then, within the additional timeframe in 3N, 3, the seller must order and pay any necessary HOA fees as outlined in 3Q, 12, and deliver the associated documents including the following. 1. All documents required by law. 2. Any pending/anticipated claims or litigation by/ against HOA. 3. A statement on number/location of parking/storage. 4. Minutes for the most recent 12 months. 5. Names/contact info of governing HOAs. 6. Pet restrictions. 7. Smoking restrictions. Seller itemizes what was received and deposits funds to escrow or HOA/management to pay for these. Section 11M, Solar Power Systems. For properties with solar panels/systems, seller delivers all known info and uses Car Solar Advisory/questionnaire within the time specified in Section 3N1. Section 11N, Balconies, exterior stairways, and other elevated elements. For buildings with 3+ dwelling units with elevated elements, Seller delivers car WB say within the time specified in Section 3N(1) and complies with its terms. Section 11(0) Known Material Facts. Seller must, within the time specified in Section 3N(1), disclose known material facts/defects, including 1. Known insurance claims past 5 years. 2. Permission for buyer to contact insurer via CarArc to obtain such info. 3. Any other legally required disclosures.